All right, I got one more. Would you rather? And I think this is a good one for a pastor because it would be hard either one. Would you rather go through life unable to answer any questions or unable to ask any questions?
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah, that's hard for a pastor, man. What are you going to do?
terrible.
It's the worst case scenario.
I love asking questions too, so that would be terrible. But I think I'd have to say I need to be able to answer questions
That's your job.
if it's my job.
Gosh, I don't know. Because it's my job to both ask and answer questions.
Yeah, but you just didn't answer just now.
I would say I'd rather not be able to ask.
Right, let's see. Mine would be unable to answer because I'd want to be able to ask questions. That's kind of
Yeah, maybe that should be mine.
yeah. Well, you screwed up, but you had your chance. You fell off the cliff. You grabbed the dog. You're done. Okay, so science. Your whole life, love science. Loved my dad because he's a science teacher. Science, big. Butterflies, love it. Then you become a pastor. Now, I'll tell you what, a lot of people will tell you those two things don't mix. Dave, it doesn't mix science and religion. You can't put those together. How can you possibly reconcile?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'd say I love science and I love the Bible, and they're very compatible. And I think that the only place where the science in terms of the word science and the Bible are not compatible is when science is bad science based on bad philosophy. A lot of times people that in the name of science will bring a philosophical idea and say it's in the name of science and call it science, but it's not empirically testable or falsifiable.
One of the things that was very important in my life, one of the reasons that I became that I was a prodigal, right? Like I spent my teens and 20s as an anarchist atheist, as Matt said, you know.
Is that true? Anarchist?
Yeah, pretty much. I was like a radical, like lefty kind of. I was into the punk thing.
What was it that brought you back? What happened?
Well, that's kind of the extension of the story. And I went through a very similar thing as you. I was actually in a PhD program for geography, and very much like got taught in my biology class, like essentially like if you don't believe in young Earth creationism, you don't believe the Bible, and you're not a Christian.
Right.
So then when I went to college, I was like, okay, I guess I'm not a Christian, right? You know what I mean? And it really, like, that's my question, is that for me that was a huge stumbling block.
Sure.
Because I was told really directly, either you buy this interpretation of Genesis or you don't believe that Jesus rose from the dead, right?
Yeah,
and those two things don't connect for me. Is that like... where are you on that?
Well, here's what I would say to somebody who was that sold out. I would say the age of the earth is so important that Jesus didn't say a word about it.
Exactly.
Right. So here's the thing: if it's gonna cause scarring spiritually to people, I'd rather not go there. Yeah, I think ultimately, as long as you believe in the risen Christ, nothing matters. That doesn't matter. On the evolution front, I think that there's really good, easy. I think it's pretty easy arguments. Even Stephen Jay Gould, the great paleontologist from Harvard, he wrote a book called Punctuated Equilibrium. And so I mean, who is Stephen Jay Gould? He's the key witness at the Scopes 2 trial, where the ACLU is trying to get creationism to not be taught in public school alongside evolution. So they bring in this guy as the expert witness against creationism. So he's like the head honcho, head of paleontology at Harvard. And in his book, he said two things in the fossil record are inconsistent with Darwinism. And number one is stasis. So fossil species exhibit no directional change during their tenure on Earth. They appear looking much the same as when they disappear. And so morphological change is usually limited and directionless. And number two, it's sudden appearance. Right. He goes, just about every fossil species or body type or any kind of plant or species appears spontaneously pops into existence in the fossil record.
Giant amount of... Yeah.
So here's Stephen Jay Gould's options. So if he says the fossil record does not prove Darwinian evolution, it proves something very different. So either it's just because if Genesis were true, what would the fossil record have to look like? It would look exactly like that. That we're not all interrelated.
Sure.
That God made kinds to reproduce after their own kind, and that's what we see, and not changing in morphologically into anything else. And so that's exactly what Dr. Gould said in his book. He said, well, in order to combat that, we have to come up with this thing called punctuated equilibrium. So basically, a bird has to hatch out of a reptile egg one day because we don't have the intermediates in the fossil record to show it.
I don't know. I've been keeping track of these missing links. They love to bring the missing link. And I keep track because whenever it comes out, people are freaking out. They don't pay attention 3 or 4 years later when they go, either they realize it wasn't, or they found a human older. So it couldn't have been the link. It was at least at the same time, if not older. So, but that never comes up. That never.
Well, I've got
no one ever remembers
I've
that.
actually got a collection of newspaper articles where it's front page New York Times news. Oh, new missing link, whatever, hominid fossil, this. And then, like you said, 6 months later, they find out it's a fraud or it was not what we thought it was. Then there's this tiny little paragraph in the back of the newspaper under like the, culture section, that nobody ever sees.
Or they find the Homo sapien or something. That's older. They find one and they go, that can't be the link. And I don't know. It's just
So it's very much philosophical. And in fact, I took a class at FAU called Comparative Vertebrate Morphogenesis and Anatomy, which is a big fancy word for evolution.
Right.
And in that, we had 2 chapters on punctuated equilibrium, and there was this massive debate, even with the professor and the person, the assistant. They disagreed, and there was this big argument. So here I am. I'm like ready with my dukes on. I'm ready to go in and argue. And all I did was sit back. And here's what I found out. If it was so clear, if the evidence was so clear that we evolved, it's so easy. Why are the scientists in front of me arguing about it? Mm-hmm. And they don't have it all figured out. It's not clear. It's not. And so I think that in terms of the evolution end of things, do things evolve? Do they change? Yeah, within type. And we see that the Bible teaches that we don't have any problem with microevolution and things, morphologically or changing in terms of within type or within kind.
Well, but let me ask it this way, because I'll be honest, I pretty much totally buy into the, like I said, the kind of Francis Collins worldview or whatever. Let's say that all of that becomes irrefutable at some point, right? Let's just say as a hypothetical scenario. Okay. Do you think that harms? Do you think you're able to read the Bible the same way that you do now? In other words, is there room in your interpretation of the Bible of saying maybe let's say that pretty much everything that the scientists describe in terms of evolution are right? Do you think that they can fairly interpret the Bible that way?
I think that that there's a lot of people that do already.
Well, yeah, I mean,
even guys from RZIM, the Ravi Zacharias Ministries. Some of those guys are, old Earth theistic evolution guys, and we go out witnessing together, and we bring people to the gospel together.
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
I personally wouldn't. It doesn't mean enough to me to keep me from. I'm not going to argue about it. If somebody wants to argue about it, it's not important to me. Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to have an intelligent conversation, we may agree to disagree or whatever. Then, I don't think it hurts the gospel, because the truth of the matter is, and I think this is where Ravi Zacharias Ministries, and if anybody watching ever wants some really good apologetic material, if you want to hear a really good, fair, intelligent shake on the Christian worldview, check out rzim.org. And so you'll hear these guys, and where the Christian apologetics has the edge on any philosophical market. It's basically the morality of man. The moral argument is just so strong, and everybody believes in morals. Everybody believes in moral absolutes, and they just don't know it. Mm-hmm. But everybody. Here's the deal: everybody knows when they've been sinned against. They feel it. Rape, murder, theft, perjury. When those things come against you, we feel the repercussions of that's called sin. And so very few people that I've ever met, I asked this question to a lot of people, would say that Hitler, he wasn't wrong for doing what he did, genocide, killing 6 million Jews, 6 million non-Jews. I've met some people that say, oh, I can't judge him. But it's a dishonest answer, because they're doing so out of a philosophical place that they know if they say that he was wrong, that they're giving up their position of there not being an ultimate moral lawgiver. And so when we say, if we can say that Hitler was absolutely wrong for doing what he did, yes, killing 12 million people to get with you what you want is wrong, independent of what David thinks or what Greg thinks or what Matt thinks. Hitler would still be wrong for killing 12 million people. That means that there's a moral law that's greater than humanity. And if there's a moral law greater than humanity, there must be a moral lawgiver. Atheism does not answer that question.
Atheists are a pretty small segment of the population. They're just the ones who want to argue with us.
Yeah. 1 Peter 3:15 says, always be ready to give a defense when you're asked why you have the hope within you. And apologetics, I think that the mistake that Christians make is they become very prideful in their knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And it's more about regurgitating a bunch of stuff than it is about,
Well, they stop reading, because the very next words say with meekness and fear.
Right.
And so like nobody wants to be meek. And if you're an apologist and you're one of these guys that's in your face and like, oh, you're going to hell, if there's nothing meek about that and there's nothing fearful about that, there needs to be a gentleness, a tenderness in that approach. And so that means that just those common misunderstandings where somebody who has an honest heart that truly wants the truth. And if anybody sees this and they say, hey, Dave, you know what? I'd like to talk honestly about that. Facebook message me. We'll make time, because if we want to have an open, honest conversation that you're not going to receive judgment from me, that's not my business. God didn't give me that responsibility. Thank God. He just gave me, hey, here's your tool. I love science too. I love good science. And, go to it.
I love that you have a Bible on the desk there for a prop.
If I'm going to have a prop, it's going to be.
That's right. Cool.